to grow more so that my time can be used a little bit differently. But for me, it's going from a one-man shop, one-man show to now having about 9 people that I'm sending leads to, speaking with, coaching, trying to get them growing. One thing I've noticed in that transition is, you can't teach attitude and you can't teach motivation. And I know that there's some people up here who could probably speak to that better than me as I'm a few months into this, but you can give all the same tools to the same people, and some of them are going to do very well and some of them are not going to have the motivation. And so some things I've told my team members is, look, I'm not your dad, I'm not your mom. I call you to see if you're making your phone calls, but I am going to call you on your BS because I can tell based on your productivity if you're actually doing the work. And so for me, it's probably taking off my I do everything hat and moving towards a delegation type, sharing some. That's my goal by the end of this year. And then my goal for next year is to turn my team into a mega icon agent team. That's my goal.
Nice. Now, how much time do you and your team spend on lead generation?
So I do all the lead generation for my team. Majority of it comes through social media. I appreciate some of the things that Mark Z just talked about with conversion rates because I'm dealing with that right now in my business. I'm seeing that I can dump 100 leads on somebody or I can dump 10 and they seem to almost be more successful with, fewer things to manage in their inbox. So I'm kind of finding the balance there. Like it sounds like Mark is doing a good job with.
Good. So Kurt, what do you use for your lead generation tool?
Well, we do things a little differently. I don't spend $1 on advertising or marketing. Every deal that we do, every lead we get is through my sphere of influence. Relationships with our lender is a big one. We reciprocate a lot of business, title companies, things like that. So my lead gen is 100% my relationships with people. So we are a little bit different. I've tried other lead gen systems through Zillow and some of the others and just didn't have the success. The return on investment, the opportunity cost was too great for us to continue moving forward. And so, just with our sphere of influence, past clients and referral sources, we're generating, we'll close about 30 million in volume this year on probably 60 transactions. So for just 2 people, it keeps us plenty busy going that way. And to echo what Mark said, he's dead on with you. It's not the amount of leads you have, it's the quality of the lead and being able to convert them. And sometimes less is more. And that's one of our huge focuses too, is when we get a lead that's qualified, is we close them. And I don't want 30 leads, then we close 3. I want 5 leads, then we close 5. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. So he was dead on with that for sure.
That's awesome. So what are you going to do differently this year to improve your numbers than you did last year?
Our main objective this year was to raise our average sales price. So the average price in Maricopa County is about $275,000. Last year, we ended at just over $400,000. And this year, our goal was $500,000 for the average, either list or sales price. We're trending at about $600,000 now, and some of that is due to I've cracked into the luxury market and have listings of over $2 and $3 million. So obviously those help when they close. So that was our biggest goal, was to not increase the number of leads or clients, because with 2 people, there's only so much you can do. It was to increase the average sale. And we did that for 2 reasons. One, obviously, at the end of the day, the volume produces income. So higher average sale, higher income. But 2, Phoenix is ground zero for all of the Zillow, Homey, all the companies that are testing their monster brokerage firms, discounted listings, Open Door, OfferPad, and they really fly in that $200,000 to $400,000 price range. So I don't want to fly in that price range and compete for listings against a homie who's doing a listing for $1,200 because we're not discounting our commissions. So our goal was to get out of that price range in the 400,000 to 600,000 to 800,000, and we're not going to compete against them, at least not very often. And so that was really, and we're seeing that. I mean, our average listing, I think, has been about 650,000 this year, and they just don't fly in that space yet. So it's been a benefit for us. So that's kind of what we're doing differently is focusing on a little bit higher end buyer and higher end listing. And it's worked well. I mean, it's worked well. We, in the first quarter, we'll close almost 9 million. So we're, well ahead of pace of last year, and with a lot of good things in the pipeline for, in that same price range.
That's awesome. Good for you. So one of the things, since you are wanting to up your price point and you're succeeding and you market to your sphere, what are some of the things that you're doing to get you in that different price range?
That's a great question. So the first thing is we work with 3 large investors that buy and flip homes, and we've moved them up to that price level because, one, we're seeing those, as crazy as it sounds, the really nice remodels in the areas that we work in the 700 to 1.5 million range sell in days. They sell right away because there's such a lack of inventory. But if you're in the 300 to 600 range, there's a glut of inventory because every investor is trying to fly in that same space. So by us convincing our investors to move up in price, they're making more money and they're selling much quicker. So that's the first thing. That's been big, not only on the buy but on the sell side. And then also our social media marketing that we do, we've tabbed it as affordable luxury. So to kind of go back to what Mark Z said earlier about, doing the things that you're good at and delegating the others, I hate social media. I don't like Facebook. I mean, I don't even use it myself hardly at all. And so I pay someone to do it because I want to focus on other things. And that person has been phenomenal for us just on the, the daily posts and stuff, affordable luxury. And I've had a lot of clients, reach out, talking about what is affordable luxury, and that started a conversation about, and so that's been able to kind of help uptick that price point a little bit too. So we still get listings and buyers in the 200 to 400 range, of course, but at the end of the day, we just want to average that higher price point. So, and then obviously getting into the luxury market has been huge too. I mean, when we have a current listing at 4 million, we have another listing at 3 million. We've had several over 1.5 million that have closed. So when you get those, obviously, those people know people that have similar houses. And if you do a good job for them, they refer you, of course. So, those kind of just steamroll, and that really throws the average number up pretty quickly when you get those kind of sales.
That's great, because that's something that I think we all try to strive for every year, is just to up your prices, your price point. So thank you. And Mark.
Yes.
What portion, you've got that big team, and I hate to keep coming back to that, but one of the questions on everybody's mind is, we've heard from Kurt, and he uses Sphere, and I usually just work my sphere as well, but you have that big team. And, what portion of budget is lead generation, marketing, advertising?
Yeah, great question. We spend more than we should, to be honest with you. So I think when we look at it overall, we're probably about 30% of gross income, gross commissions, spent on marketing. I know that you should be around, I believe you should probably be under 10% is what they say. So we're on the high side, no doubt about it. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm not personally involved in lead generation like I used to be. This entire team and organization was built on calling expired listings and for sale by owners. That's how I built this empire. And because I'm not at Mix anymore, so it's, you know, if you're not self-generating business, then you got to buy the business. And so, you know, I take the easy way out and buy it rather than lead generate like I know that I should if I wanted a bigger bottom line.
Okay, what types of advertising and marketing are you doing that you are finding that's very successful?
Honestly, our past clients, we mail to them at least once a month. Sometimes we'll send extra things during the month, but they get at least a postcard or a newspaper or for us, it's Detroit Tigers, you know, baseball magnet. They're getting something from us every single month. So we hit our sphere and past clients, our database, very, very well. Then the other marketing, like I said, is TV, radio. We do have some inside sales agents who are calling expired listings and for sale by owners. So that's a good part of our business as well. And so that combined with Zillow on the buyer side makes up all of our marketing.
Good, good. So let's go on to Kevin. So where do you invest in yourself, your education, coaching, marketing, any of those items?
Probably need to break them down a little more than that. I invest in myself by spending time with my family. I've got 2 little kids. I've got a 4-year-old girl and an 18-month-old. And a tool that I've started using in the last few months that I'm really appreciating is the Do Not Disturb tab on my iPhone. Learning when to connect and disconnect, you know, I think is really helping me with a mental game. As far as marketing goes, you know, the majority of my personal business is generated from my sphere of influence. You know, I'm 6 years into this business. I've now developed a pretty good referral network. My question back to the other icons up here is, what are you using for a database? Because I have 3 systems for past clients and they're all terrible. So I want to kind of know what they're using to reach back out to their sphere of influence other than social media. You know, I'm pretty, I've got a business partner I brought on end of last year who is a social media phenom, a guy named Gavin Malm with my team, and he has encouraged me to spend more time on social media. As me personally, I can't stand it, but I do know that is how most people stay connected and get connected these days. So marketing wise, a majority of my marketing dollars are directed through social media to lead generate, to push people back to my conversion websites where I'll disseminate those leads to other agents and you know, go from there. As far as sphere of influence, I'm just generally an easy guy to talk to and friendly. And there's a gentleman who's the Realtor of the Year here in New Mexico, which I'm pretty proud of, named Paul Wilson. And I got a knowledge bomb from him a couple days ago. He said there's a 3-foot rule in real estate, and he's been in business for 40 plus years. And he said the 3-foot rule in real estate is anybody within 3 feet of you should be talking about real estate. And I realized that's something that I already do, but it was kind of nice to hear somebody sort of coin it so well. So that's a big part of where my personal business comes from, is sort of just the people I'm around. And then ultimately, there's one thing anybody can take away from anything I'm telling them, it's follow-up. At the bottom of all my emails, it says I return every call, text, and email, and I do stay true to that. And that is huge for my clients and my referral network.
That sounds like a common theme between all of us, you know, follow up, something that's very important. But since you mentioned social media, and that seems to be one of the big topics, social media, videos, getting out there, is that something that you are doing yourself, or did you hire somebody to do that for you? Kevin.
Yeah, sorry, I just took a phone call and
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
Apple everything, so my entire computer gets like taken over. It's like you have to answer this call. Um, but as far as social media goes, I do a lot of the posts myself, and then I have another gentleman who posts for our team, and then we have started doing something on the listing side that's been very, very successful. We are doing professional listing videos for every one of our properties that we list, all the way down to about the 200 mark. And though it costs me between $900 and $1,200 per video, we are doing an interview style video for our properties and posting it on social media a week and a half prior to actually listing the property. And so far, we're seeing phenomenal success with that, with sort of a pent up demand for our listings. We market them for a week and a half as a coming soon listing. That video is running on all social media streams. We cut the video to be 1 minute so that it fits on Instagram and Facebook. But those interview style videos, we're getting a ton of followers, a ton of interest, and we're using our listings to generate buyer leads at basically a zero cost. And so I think that's huge, is turning those listings where you have one commission into maybe 50 or 100 leads. So there's some examples of that on my Instagram page, Casa ABQ. I'll throw it in the public chat box, but those videos alone are generating a phenomenal amount of buyer leads. So we're sort of double dipping on our listings, and we're getting over 12,000 views a video. So our sellers are absolutely ecstatic.
Yeah, videos seem to be the hot topic these days. So are either one of you others using videos in your business?
Absolutely, we are. Mark Z here. Video is everything right now. It's a lot more engaging. So we try to use video as much as we can. Social media, clients. We're always trying to post more videos nonstop. Videos where it's all at right now.
Good. What about you, Kurt?
Yeah, we do two kinds of videos. We do listing videos similar to what Kevin does, where we walk through the house, video and kind of interview style, talking about the property and the features of the neighborhood. And then also once a month, I sit down with my social media gal and we shoot about 5 hours worth of informational video where we're talking about home buyer 101 or what you need to do to get ready to list your house, just whatever it is that people might find interesting. So we'll shoot about 5 hours worth and then she'll chop it up and use those as posts throughout the month. And the engagements, to echo what Mark and Kevin have said, the engagement has been astronomically better when you have a video and it's, I hate to say interactive, but at some level interactive. It's been much better, and have gotten quite a few people that have reached out, asked questions, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the engagement from the consumer, because that potentially obviously starts a conversation about, are you looking to buy or sell? And then that leads you down the road of obviously an opportunity with the client. So the videos would be great.
Yeah, that seems to be such a big buzzword these days. So let's go on to Mark Z. You've got that big team again. You've got people that you've grown. How are you tracking your business with your team?
Yeah, great question. I'm pretty analytical, so I actually have fun watching all the numbers each day, each week, each month. But we track everything through a system called HubSpot. HubSpot is owned by Salesforce. We used to have Salesforce, and then we slowly migrated over to HubSpot. And we track every possible metric you could ever imagine in our business. That's the only way we know when to make changes, what changes we need to make, what status leads are in, what we're closing for the month, projections, what we have coming up. When you're spending nearly $100,000 a month in marketing, you got to watch the numbers, because you could take a beating real quick if the market turns, if you're not closing as many deals as you need to. You need to keep a real close eye on it when you're spending that kind of money.
Yeah, that's true. Is HubSpot a CRM as well, or are you using
Yeah, it's absolutely a CRM. It creates workflows, meaning if this happens, then this. If you, like, for example, if we change the status of a lead from active to pending, it automatically sends the file to the title company. It will automatically send a notice to the inspector to schedule an inspection with the client. So everything is, when you're doing 40, 50, 60 deals a month, you got to have automation in place. Because otherwise, you're going to have 3 times as many staff members as you need.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, thank you. So let's go back to Kurt. Why did you get into selling real estate, and did you start full-time or part-time?
I started full-time. I have my license in Arizona and in California. My background was I was a high-level sales rep in a different industry for years, and then I was national sales manager, managing $250 million business with about 60 sales reps. And I just decided that I wanted to be the captain of my own ship and work for myself. I love real estate. I had bought and sold several homes as investments, flipping them myself. So I was pretty versed in it. So I decided 3.5 years ago that I was going to go full time, and I just quit cold turkey. I quit my job, and it was a very high income job. A lot of people said, you're crazy, but I've always bet on myself, and I knew that I could be successful at this. So we moved back to Arizona full time. We sold our place in California and put roots down here. And so we're in our 3rd full year of real estate. So I started full time. And a funny story, my buyer's agent, Logan Means, who's just been a rock star for me, he chased me for 6 months to work with me, because different from Mark and Kevin, I had no desire to manage a bunch of people again, because that's what I did. And managing the egos and personalities and the wants and the drive is very difficult. And so I just wanted to work for myself. But he bugged me and bugged me and bugged me for months. And so I finally said, I'll give you one shot, because I knew I needed help. My rubber band had stretched so far that I was about to snap. And but I made him commit. I said, you're either going, because he was trying to do real estate and trying to do something else at the same time. And I said, if you're working for me, you're all in. You're either all in or you're all out. And a couple of days later, he called me up and says, I'm all in. So I think to truly be successful, to any agents out there that are trying to do it part-time, I understand why you are, but it's going to be very difficult to be truly successful doing it part-time, because you're competing against true professionals that grind 50, 60 hours a week on it. And when you're working 10 or 15, it's very difficult. Yeah, you might do a deal here and there, but if real estate is ultimately what you want to do, you've got to commit and go all in.
Yeah, you're so right. Excuse me. So, Kurt, what is one thing that you do to go above and beyond for your clients?
That's a great question. Again, I think this kind of goes back to what makes your business successful. I don't know that there is just one thing that I could put my finger on and say, this is the most important thing that I do. What I will say is that we try to do everything for our client. And when I say everything, that literally is everything through that transaction, so that they don't have to do anything except sign documents. Because we just, it can be a very stressful situation for the client. So we try to remove as much from the plate as possible. So I don't have a great answer for one thing that we do that goes above and beyond. But I think if you ask most of our clients, what they would tell you is it was a fun, enjoyable, and very stress-free transaction. And that's always what we try to do. So, we have a portfolio of obviously contractors and of all different trades that we provide, interior designers, architects, all those things, if somebody chooses. So we try to be full service shop, where if you come to us, You don't need to go anywhere else. We'll have somebody for you for everything. And I think that that creates a level of ease and trust in our client, and just makes the process for them, much, much easier.
Good. What about you, Kevin? Do you have something that sets you apart, that you go above and beyond?
For me, it would just have to be follow up and follow through. I don't overpromise and underdeliver. I know that's a coined comment, but I really do follow through with everything that I promise to my buyer clients, my listing clients. I really do, make follow through, so important. One sort of skill set that I've developed, and this comes from sales management prior to being in real estate, is just problem solving. Is finding those unique ways to make sure that nobody ever leaves the table. One of my mentors taught me that if they're under contract, they're under contract, they're under contract, they're under contract. And you do not let a deal fall apart, no matter what happens. The hardest deals that we have are often made up for by the easy ones. But for the most part, it's keeping everybody at the table, thinking outside of the box of problem solving, and just making sure that, if you've got a willing, I typically start off with a conversation like this to either the listing broker or the buyer's broker, depending on who I'm talking to. When an executed contract comes through, I always make this phone call and I say, Mr. or Mrs. Agent, I'm excited to work with you. I've got a willing buyer on my side, and I hope you've got a willing seller, and it's up to you and me not to screw it up. And typically, one of the best things that you can do as you're going through these transactions, if you run into an issue, I've found that asking for help is the best way to get through any problem in any transaction. To literally go to the other agent and go, hey, so-and-so, I need some help. And then you pause. And you wait for them to respond. And they say, okay, Kevin, what do we need help with? Well, I've got, X amount of dollars worth of repairs, and I got a broke seller, and I got, help me. And, oftentimes we are all problem solvers. We're all there to get everybody across the finish line. So it really is okay to lean on that other agent for solutions. And a lot of times when you just ask for help, you can find out a lot more about the either buyer's position or the seller's position or whatever, and you can use that to your advantage.
Right. That's so important. I think, as agents, we all need to work together because we all have that same common goal, is to get to the closing line without and make it as easy as possible. How about you, Mark? Is there anything that you do differently that hasn't been said?
Yeah, you know what? I think a lot of it has to do with the mindset from leadership from the top down. And everybody on my team knows that one frame of mind that we always have is put the money aside and then do the right thing. I think a lot of times money gets in the way of us doing the right thing, because a lot of us are in positions where we need that check so bad, or we need that closing. We're operating out of the frame of mind of scarcity rather than plentiful. So when you only have 2 closings and that closing's falling apart, or that client doesn't want to pursue the house because the foundation, and you're trying to get them to stick in a deal in a house that maybe they shouldn't be purchasing, or maybe the other side just isn't being as honest as they should. Sometimes we lead our clients into decisions that they really shouldn't be doing. So I've always preached to my team that you put the money aside and you always do the right thing. We never let a client leave the closing table unhappy. If it means cutting some commission at the end, whatever it takes to make them happy. We're always all about first-class service from the time we meet them until after closing. We're calling up, we're following up after the closing. We hear that. I can't tell you how many times we adopt the buyer on the other side of the transaction, or the client on the other side of the transaction, because their realtor on the day of closing, that was the last time they've ever heard from that realtor. You'd be surprised how many times we follow up a week later and they've never heard from anybody, and they had some questions or they needed something from the other side, and their realtor never called them back because the transaction closed and they got paid. So even after the closing, it's so important that you stay in touch and follow up, you know, a few days after closing and maybe a month after closing. You'd be surprised how many referrals you get and how many times you end up adopting that other client and picking up 2 clients when in reality you started with 1 just because of service. That's what sets us apart. We're not the only realtor in town. You know, there's thousands of realtors, and the only thing that I believe sets you up is the service that you get. That's true really in any industry, unless you're fortunate enough to be in an industry where you're the only person that provides that product or that service, then you can afford to give sub-service. But other than that, I believe that's what sets you apart in any industry you're in, is a service that you provide.
I agree, because we all remember what kind of service you got, and the follow-up is so important. Like you said, not just a day after closing, but a month, you know, 2 months, a year follow-up. That's how you're going to get those clients for life. So I think that what we're going to do is open up the floor to see if anybody has any questions for you 3. Don't have any questions you want to ask Kurt or Kevin or Mark?
Wow, getting off easy today, huh?
You are, you are.
I think you guys did great up there, and I really appreciate everything that you've given us.
Well, great. I have one more question, and the 3 of you, either one can answer this. Do any of you have any epic failures that changed the way that you do your business and set your business strategy that you like to discuss, or maybe not?
I do, for sure. We, being a small team, to echo what Mark said, is to provide the level of service that all your clients deserve. We've actually at a few times have had to turn away business and refer it out because we just don't have the bandwidth to help somebody. Our philosophy is if we can't give you 110% attention, then we can't take you on as a client because we're cheating you. And an epic failure that I had was when I had started by myself and quickly ramped up to being much busier than I thought I would. I had way too many buyers and sellers on my plate, and had a client that I felt like I didn't cheat, but I couldn't provide the service that I could, and I lost that client. And that was a really tough one for me because it was the first time I'd ever experienced that. And it really taught me a valuable lesson in real estate, is that, you know, there's only so much that you can do on your own. I'm a micromanager and very OCD, and I feel like I can always do everything myself. And I quickly learned by losing that client, in the long run, was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it opened my eyes and made me realize that I need to delegate. I need to have brought Logan on, hire someone to do my social media for me. And ever since I did that, although I feel terrible for losing that client, I vowed it would never happen again, and it obviously hasn't. And our business has skyrocketed. So an epic failure, something that really crushed me personally, turned out to be probably the best thing that happened for the business. And we're definitely more successful now because of it.
Well, thank you for sharing. Do either one of you have any?
I've got one.
Okay.
So my biggest epic failure was once I started seeing success, was ultimately riding that roller coaster. I realized, you know, pretty early on that I could go from my, you know, biggest closing months to my lowest closing months. And what I started to realize is what I had a failure of was a failure of systems. So I started putting more systems in place and a little bit more structure in my day, in order to make sure that I still, at the end of the week, have worked each part of my business, whether or not that's daily or weekly. But I quickly realized that the busier I got, you know, I would have a monster quarter followed by a really slow quarter, or a monster month followed by a slow month, and sort of figuring out a way to ride that wave was where things really started to change for me. And you know, what really brought up my monthly averages on how many closings I was doing really came to putting systems in place, putting a little bit more structure into my daily schedule, weekly schedule, and then monthly schedule, so that all parts of my business are getting worked and you know, regularly. I think that's where I ran into failures early on. Was okay, great, I've got 14 closings this month, and next month 1 or 2, unless some of these 14 get pushed into the following month. So I would just say stay consistent, put systems in place so that things are working for you, and you don't have to press the button to make something work. That's something I really worked on the last 2 years. And now I've got some systems in place where they're working actively for me, and I don't have to be the one that presses the button to make it go.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hey guys, you were talking about working on your lead conversions this year. Can you bullet point some best practices and things that you're working on, please?
I know for us, we implemented a new CRM system, Desk, and similar to HubSpot, it's very automated. Everything, you know, between drip campaigns and follow-up emails and all those things, we've gotten 2 deals from past clients directly from Desk, from automated emails that went out. They responded back, because when you have a database of several hundred clients, it's very tough to talk or text to each one of those all the time, and so those automated systems are key. So that's one. And then when we get a lead from a buyer or a referral from a sphere of influence, I mean, we have daily or bi-daily follow-up with them until that deal, until we either get the listing or until we get that buyer in the car or whatever the case may be. We are relentless pit bulls when we get you know, into a lead. We just, it's follow-up, follow-up, follow-up. I mean, you know, they've done studies on this, you know, 7 touches a lot of times before you get response or contact, and sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but we don't stop until we get an answer, yes or no. So I think, and then on the past leads, to echo what Mark said, it's following up a week, 30 days, 90 days, 180 days after it closes to make sure, hey, is there anything I can do for you? And it can just be a phone call talking about, is there something I can do to serve you? Not asking for a referral. That's going to come because you're talking to them, and obviously it comes up in conversation. But just offering your service. How can I serve you? How can I help you? And that goes so far because they don't expect it. They expect you've cashed your check, you're fading away into the ether, but we continue to follow up with them, and it's amazing how much business we get from that. So when that lead comes in, you just have to continuously follow up in a respectful way, of course, until they give you a yes or no. You have to. Because if you're not doing it, somebody else is.
What modes of communication are you utilizing? All of them? I mean, obviously calling, or your texting, emailing, everything.
Yeah.
And are those automated at all? Like your texts and emails, are those automated, or are you just emailing and texting?
The only automated we use is on our standard drip campaigns for a random sphere of influence or holiday or past clients. But when we have an active lead or a closed client that we communicate with, it really depends on what form of communication that client likes. Sometimes that client's a texter. Sometimes the client is an email person. Sometimes they want to talk on the phone. So you've got to be a problem solver and a detective and figure out what form of communication do I get the best response from them from, and then use that. When it's a new client, it's always phone call first, text message second, email third. And we continue with those until we get a response from one of those avenues, and then, you know, and then we engage it. So it's really all three, unless you know that client's favored way of communication, because everybody's different. So you're kind of a detective trying to find out what that is. And then once you have it, that'll make it a little bit easier.
Great.
For me, Mark Z, it's a combination of two things. If you have a team, because less is more, meaning less leads. It's going to convert if you treat every lead like it's the last lead you're ever going to get. It's amazing what ends up happening to your conversion. I mean, the average I think is around 2 to 3%, which I just can't wrap my mind around how low that is. That means 2 or 3 leads out of 100. So that's what we're working on.
Hey, Mark, what is your last name?
What's my last name?
Yeah.
Zawada. Z-A-W-A-I-D like David, E-H.
Wait a, and do you have, how many personnel do you have? Office structure?
Yeah, the team made up, believe it or not, because of all the automation that we have in place, we only have 3 admins. So we have an office admin that's kind of the manager. Then we have a listing coordinator who handles all the listings that come in, and then a closing coordinator. Then we also have VAs behind the scenes who handle a lot of the stuff that the automation doesn't handle. But most of it's all through automation.
Thanks, that's amazing.
Yep. I never got a chance to tell you all of my mistakes. Although we don't have an hour, I could seriously I could do a show for an hour on all of the mistakes that I've made, and it's still continuing to go on. So three big mistakes over my career that I think have always affected my growth. One is wrapping your mind around that morning schedule. There's nothing more important than that morning schedule. If that morning schedule goes as planned, it sets up the entire day, the entire week, the entire month, depending on how consistent you are with that morning schedule. What I mean by that morning schedule is, don't look at your emails. As soon as you get into your emails, your day is done. You're in reactive mode instead of producing mode. So that morning, there's nothing more important than taking that morning and having it be geared towards income producing activities, meaning prospecting, generating business. And I'm not saying you have to do it from 8 to 12. If you just did it for 2 hours a day, from 8 to 10, blocked everything else out, and then let whatever happens throughout your day, let it happen. But it's gonna wait, and it's gonna be there waiting for you. And if it's that catastrophic of an emergency, believe me, you're gonna find out about it. But just let that morning schedule happen from 8 to 10. Number 2, let the emotions go in the business. I find that agents get in the way of the deals. It's not really the clients that get in the way of the deals. It's the agents. Agents speaking for their clients. My client will never accept that offer. Oh my God, I can't believe you came in so low. I mean, things like, I hate it when agents speak for their clients. It's our job as a realtor to let buyers buy and let sellers sell. Remove your emotion out of it because it's really irrelevant. Let the seller sell his house and let the buyer buy the house that they want to buy. Too many times in my career, I didn't want a buyer paying that much because I didn't feel the house was worth that. Or I negotiated too much because I felt like the seller was giving the house away. Well, we all know the house is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay. So remove your emotions, step out of the way, get out of your own way, and let the buyer and seller put the deal together. And then number 3, you got to avoid the real estate roller coaster. What I mean by that is it's too often that we have a great month, and then in the next month or 2, you might do 5-6 deals in a month and have a killer month, and then the next 2 months you do no deals or 1 or 2 deals. So then it averages out to 2 deals a month. Because what happens is we get so busy working those deals, doing all of the administrative stuff of those deals, that we don't have time to income generate, to income producing activities. So if you don't have an admin, if you don't have a virtual assistant, you got to get one. So as soon as a deal goes pending, you're handing that off. And there's a lot of companies that do it for $250 a deal. You can do it per deal. You don't have to have someone, some people might say, I'm not busy enough to have someone full-time or part-time. You can pay someone per deal. There's a lot of transaction companies out there who do that. But as soon as that buyer or seller deal goes pending, you've got to hand that off. So you're off and running and chasing the next deal. Otherwise, like I said, you're going to have your highs and your lows. And at the end of the year, you're going to have 6 great months and 6 bad months. And it's going to end up being an average year. When the hardest thing to do is to do it one time. If you close 5 deals in a month, you can close 5 deals every month. It's just a matter of staying consistent with the activities that you did in order to get to those 5 deals that 1 month. So I think if you implement those 3 things, I think you're going to have a killer career.
That was really awesome. That was very awesome. I hope that you have all enjoyed today's ICONversation. I know I have. It was a pleasure being up here with Kurt, Kevin, and Mark. I look forward to working with you guys, and you know how to find us if anybody needs anything.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. What a great session. And we do appreciate